please.
Peral, you say that we all came from divinity and that we're all going back home to divinity, and that the natural course of things, it drives us in that direction toward our home. And if that's true, how did we get so far away?
Good, fine. The question is that we came from a divine source, and the whole procedure
active listening
of evolution is to take us back home. Now, what is the purpose of it? In the first place, why did we leave home? And if we have left home, we have to go back. Now, if we ask ourselves the question, why did we leave home? Why did we leave the divine source? Now, if you analyze this, you will find, from the absolute point of view, that we have not left home. We have gone nowhere. We started here, and here we are. Now that is from the absolute point of view, because divinity is perfection itself. Divinity does not require to express itself. It is only the imperfect person that wants to express himself and thereby find perfection. A poet writes a poem to express himself, and in his very expression he tries to meet himself and find perfection. The musician composes a symphony. He composes the symphony also for the purpose of expression, so that through the medium of his expression he can find his own self, his own completeness. Now, all forms of expression, therefore, stem from that which is imperfect. Now, divinity is regarded to be perfect, and if divinity is perfect, it has no need to express itself. When there is perfection, then there is no desire, and desire is the forerunner of expression. So what has happened here? If divinity does not want to express itself, then what are we doing here? Now, from the relative point of view, we could view it from a different angle. Divinity is there, the unmanifest divinity, and divinity has to manifest itself. It is not because of any need. For example, we could use the analogy of fire. The fire has no need to give off heat, but it is the very nature of fire to give off heat. A block of ice has no need to give off coldness, but it is the very nature of the block of ice to be cold and give off coldness. So in such a way, creation came about where the unmanifest exists with the manifest. Good. In ancient Sanskrit terms, we would call it Shiva, the manifester, and Shakti, that which is manifest. Now, there is an aspect to divinity, and that aspect is creativity. Divinity at a certain level, just below the realms of the absolute, is described as existence, it is described as knowledge, and it is described as bliss. So, existence, knowledge, and bliss could be taken as a manifestation and not a creation. To repeat, all existence is a manifestation and not a creation, because the perfect being does not require to create, it has no need. Now, the manifestation of the manifester is just as eternal as the unmanifest. In other words, it means that God exists because you exist, and you exist because God exists. So, the Creator and creation are two aspects of the same thing. Now, when we view creation, we take it to be manifestation. Now, all the problems that we see, all the evolutionary processes that we see, is in the manifestation. There is a magnetic pull between the manifester and the manifestation, and the desire is not in the manifester, but desire is created in that which is manifested. And because of that desire and the magnetic pull, creation wants to become one with the Creator, or manifestation wants to become one with the manifester. As I said before, from the absolute angle, nothing else exists but divinity, the eternal one, the omnipresent one. There are certain schools of thought that will tell you that all manifestation is an illusion. True. Maya, they call it in Sanskrit. All manifestation is an illusion, but the illusion is only to the absolute. The illusion is not for the relative. For the relative, the absolute is an illusion. It works both ways. To the absolute, the manifestation is an illusion, and to the manifestation, the absolute is an illusion. Now we are governed by rules and laws of the relative, and therefore we, as relative beings, we are real. If we were not real, then I could say that unreality is speaking to unreality. What is the purpose? It would be useless. So from the relative realms, we are real. We are real. Now, this manifestation, as we mentioned before, is as heat is to fire. It is not a matter of creation whatsoever, because creation is not required. But now, when the subtle energy that was manifested from the unmanifest, the subtle energy in its process changes and assumes grosser forms, many forms, a myriad forms, a million forms. And these are the differences that we see in the universe. That this is a table and that is a chair. That is sand and that is stone. But the essence of it all, the essence of it all is one. Good evening. We were just waiting for you.
Well, thank you.
So we've been waiting.
Chalk it up for the traffic.
They came from way up north
just for the evening.
Oh, lovely. Welcome to the South.
Thank you.
Good. So, the manifestation from the relative viewpoint is also a reality, but that reality is to us. And from the absolute angle, all manifestation is not real, but just a superimposition. And yet, that which is real cannot exist without that which is superimposed upon it. But now, as the process began in manifestation in that very subtle, fine energy, that subtle, fine energy condensed itself into what we know as the personal God. So, the impersonal God, which is abstract, which is attributeless, which is formless, has now assumed form in the form of a personal God. So the sun gives off its heat or its rays, and what we perceive in the manifestation are the rays of the sun and not the sun itself. Like a flower, if there is a screen and the flower is not perceived, we still perceive the fragrance. Now, with these subtle energies coming forth, it is the nature of these energies to condense itself, become more and more grosser. There too, it's not a matter of creation. It's a matter of a certain thing, or the subtle energy in our case, working within the boundaries of its own nature. And when this very subtle energy becomes more and more grosser, we call it the personal God. Now, in the realms of the personal God, which is of the finest relative, it has to mix with itself and it replicates itself. And in the replication and togetherness and separation of these various atomic structures, various changes take place. And these changes are the forerunners of all creation that we see around us. Now, why did these changes take place, and how do these changes take place? The entire universe is in a state of flux, and in that flux, millions of explosions at this very moment are occurring. If one studies outer space or could perceive whatever is in outer space, one would know that forever there is creation and destruction all the time. Destruction, or rather dissolution. Even in our human bodies, millions of cells are being destroyed daily, and millions of cells are taking form again, regenerated again. And it is this process of replication and duplication and interchanging forces that have to interchange. Various forms come about. So these forms are us. But when we look at the reality of things, then we would find that the ocean is not apart from the wave. We see waves and we say, this is a big wave and that is a small wave. But in reality, it is the same water. So, it means that the manifestation and the manifester are one. Now, in the process of evolution, when man started intellectualizing the differences, he first came upon duality. He saw the separation between the wave and the water. So, what did he cognize in the beginning stages was name and form. He saw the form of water, the form of the wave, and he gave it a name, form. For example, we can take some clay. With one piece of clay, we mold a mouse, and with the other clay, we mold an elephant. And anyone passing there would say, that is a mouse, and that is an elephant. But in reality, it is the same clay. Now, the mistake man makes, and this has been going on since man has started thinking that he observes, sees, perceives the form and name only. Because he has put greater emphasis on his five senses: hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, touching. And his criteria for knowing something, for cognizing something, has been only these senses. But yet there is something inside man that tells one that beyond these senses of perception, there could be other senses. There could be other forces. Those other forces are welling up within him, and yet, the greater emphasis is put on the senses. The time comes when this welling up within him, this yearning, becomes so very strong, so very powerful, that he starts seeking. He starts seeking, and in the search he realizes that the instruments which I am using are not the only instruments that exists within me. The instruments I have can only measure surface value of things and not the inner value. So then, in his search, he starts diving deep within himself to find the inner value within himself first. And after finding the inner value within himself, he sees the inner value outside himself. And when he sees that, he immediately knows that what is within is also without. What is inside me is also outside me. And it is a continuum. The air in the balloon is the same air outside the balloon. Then, what does man do? He has to bust the balloon. And when the balloon, this name and form, is annihilated, then the very essence, the air in the balloon, merges away in the outer air. So, what happens is this, that the individual becomes universal. In this process of becoming universal, one has to learn to appreciate the finest relative to the realms of the personal God, which represents the entire totality or the entire emanation of this universe. But that is not all. That is not all. That is not all, because that is still something which has been manifested. From there, the procedure still goes on. Because with the recognition of the personal God, there still remains this duality. And in the search, this deep yearning, duality must cease. And it is only when he reaches the abstract God, the impersonal God, and there he finds that there is no duality. There he finds that this manifestation was but just a dream, was just a dream. Then he discovers the secret of what is illusion. There's a lovely little story. Krishna was going on a long trip with one of his disciple and friend, Sudama. So on this trip, Sudama asks Krishna, "Tell me the secret of illusion. Why is it said that this whole world is but an illusion and only divinity is real?" So on this long journey, Krishna was thirsty, and he tells Sudama, "Half-mile down the road there's a village, and get me some water." Fine. Sudama goes to the village and he knocks on the first door, and a beautiful young damsel opens the door. He asks for water, and they started talking. It went on for a very long time, and it happened that Sudama fell in love with this young lady. They had fallen in love. He approached the parents for the girl's hand in marriage, and they were duly married. The water is forgotten. Krishna is thirsty, still waiting for the water. They got married and raised a family. Tended the cows, looked after the farm. 3 children were born. One day a flood came about, and the whole village was washed away. The whole village was washed away. So here Sudama tried to gather some of his most precious belongings, but those too got washed away. He tried to save his wife, but she got drowned. He had 1 child on his shoulder and the other 2 on each arm. But the currents were so swift that they too got pulled away. Now all this happened over a period of 12 years. He raised the family, established a household. 12 years he was married to this woman. So now in this strong current, while he was trying to save 1 child, he lost the grip of the other child, and he got washed away. Like that, his wife, his belongings, and his 3 children were drowned. And somehow or the other, by luck perhaps, he got washed out onto the shore. Krishna shakes him. Sudama wakes up. And Krishna says, you've been gone for a good half an hour. Why did you take so long? Huh? Those 12 years was an illusion. But the illusion was for divinity, because in that realm there is no time. You go nowhere and you come from nowhere. You are. I am that I am. There's nowhere to go and nowhere to come from. It is only the relative waves that has all the movement. And we are caught up in this perpetual movement. The only way out is to step off the bus. The bus will still keep on moving all the time. Now, that is the purpose. That is the purpose of our meditational and spiritual practices, is to get off the bus. Yes, that's all we do. By getting off the bus, we know that even relativity is eternal. And relativity, because being governed by various factors, is in continual flux. It is continuously changing, but we are unhappy with all these changes taking place. We want to find stability. We want to find the changeless. Now, change exists in a certain dimension, and changelessness exists in a different dimension. So, when man finds the ability through his meditation and spiritual practices, he can go beyond the changing mind and the changing body and the changing environment. He becomes oblivious of all that he sees around him and merges away into being which is changeless. So, the process of evolution shows only one thing. It shows that from the change, man wants to reach changelessness. From instability of that which forever changes, man wants to reach the stability of the changeless. And there, supreme joy is felt. Supreme joy is felt, where you even transcend the personal God that man worships, and you are now in the realms of the impersonal. The impersonal is abstract. Now, how to appreciate the abstract? We know that the finite mind cannot comprehend that which is infinite. We know that. We know that. So what do? We approach the abstract through the concrete. We approach the abstract through the concrete. Now, where do we start? If a woman loves her husband totally and completely, the husband could become the symbol of the abstract, though he is concrete. If man loves his wife totally and completely, she could become the symbol of the abstract in concrete form. Man cannot do this because he does not live in totality. Let us take an example of husband and wife making love. How many people really know how to make love? Yes. Man makes love only with his mind and body. I'm out. Man and woman make love only with their minds and bodies. And the greatest element is forgotten. They are oblivious of it. They are oblivious of it. If the mind and the body could be infused with spiritual value, the spiritual self of man, if man can make love in his totality with his three aspects that composes him, then that sexual act could become a meditation. In that way, in every action man performs today, he does not perform anything as a total being. Man is fragmented. And that is the purpose of our foundation. That is the purpose of our meditational and spiritual practices, so that the mind and the body and the spirit could be so integrated that every action we do becomes dynamic. Every breath we take becomes a complete breath. And in each breath we take, we can capture the essence of the entire universe. Man has that capacity. Man has that capacity. If only he would make some little effort to integrate himself. Good. So, in this process of evolution, with all this multiplication of various forces that go up to make man, there is this unifying factor. There is this unifying factor that governs mind and body. And that unifying factor is the spiritual factor. Why man cannot appreciate this spiritual factor or bring it into his daily life is because he puts emphasis on the grosser aspects rather than the subtler aspects. So as I said this morning, it's just a slight turn. If greater emphasis is put on the spiritual self of man, then the grosser self looks after itself. That is the way. That is the way, and the way is the life that man has to live. And if man lives in that way, by which his life is guided, then that is the truth. Good. So that is the process. Those are the mechanics. And as I said this morning, it is so simple. It is so simple. Okay, right, good. Next.
I was given a question earlier, which I want to notate. I'd like to
Would you read it?
Bueno, I think that we can leave it here. Yo creo que lo podemos dejar aquí y you want to say something about it, si queréis decir algo sobre esto. it is 8 o'clock, so I'm going to do a little bit of extraction. Pero vamos, que si queréis compartir cualquier cosa, habéis entendido de lo que hemos hablado.
Sí, a mí me ha gustado ver, por ejemplo, cómo cómo ha explicado muy bien el bias que tenemos, ¿no? Por el hecho de que los sentidos son muy importantes para nosotros, ¿no? Y que eso nos hace tener esta ilusión de separación. No lo había escuchado antes, ¿no? Como esa importancia, ¿no? De no creerse la información solo de los sentidos. I was saying that how he's putting very nicely how important is for us the senses that we have, no? The sight, the feeling, and how because of these senses we have the illusion of being separate, yeah? Because I see you outside of me somehow, and I have this feeling of separation. Yeah? And we are so attached, no, to these tools that we have that we have this misconception of separation.
A mí lo que me ha hecho ver una cosa, ¿no? Que según en qué entorno estás, ¿no? Claro, cuando hablas de la esencia o del Dios personal o del corazón, pues para muchas personas eso es una ilusión, porque como no lo tocan, ¿no? Y ha sido muy curioso porque ha dicho, claro, desde lo absoluto, pues es una ilusión lo relativo, pero desde lo relativo es una ilusión lo absoluto. Y ostras, no me había, ¿sabes?
Ten en cuenta que mientras estamos en este cuerpo, estamos en el ego.
Claro.
Y estamos en mente y cuerpo. Y la conciencia, que es lo puro, es decir, está ahí, pero tienes que ir hasta ese punto donde al final te haces uno con la conciencia, que es uno con el Dios personal, para empezar. Y el Dios personal es lo que está, y puede ser tu mujer, Adán y Eva o lo que tú quieras. Pero el Shakti para esta próxima siglos viene a través de Gururachi, al final mucha gente lo hará. Okay, now I only say it in Spanish because
I'm the odd man out. Go ahead and speak in Spanish. I'll catch your drift.
No, you can speak in English, you know. You have people because I'm at this time, a day like today, and I have to prepare things. I'm tired, I have to say.
Yo personalmente este vídeo, bueno, hay muchos, claro, no lo había visto y me parece que resume a la perfección la esencia de todo.
This video resumes to perfection the essence of all things, for my opinion.
One of the things that I found within myself that kind of bears on the discussion that Guru Raj was having was when I was a little boy.
Una de las cosas que veo en esta discusión que Guru Raj tiene es que cuando yo era un niño pequeño,
I would walk around my backyard.
andaba por mi patio
I'm maybe 5 years old.
con 5 años
And the thoughts that kept coming through my mind is, this is not my home. I'm not supposed to be here.
los pensamientos que tenía era como, esto no es mi casa, yo no tendría que estar aquí con 5 años.
I would literally kick the ground, you know, in a straight line, looking for the doors that would open up and I could get my spaceship and I could go home at the age of 5.
Literalmente estaba andando por mi patio esperando encontrar una puerta donde poder entrar a mi nave espacial y ir para mi casa de verdad.
At the age of 12 or 13, I lived in the desert in Las Vegas.
Cuando tenía 12, 13 años vivía en el desierto, en Las Vegas.
We're talking desert. Just few scrub bushes, mostly sand, and rocks.
Desierto de verdad, vamos, con toda la arena, algunos arbustos, pero desierta, piedra a piedra.
110, 115 degrees in the sun.
Eso son 40 grados, ¿no?
And
Sí,
there was a,
arriba.
see,
We don't speak Fahrenheit.
we're talking hot.
Ya.
There was a dry riverbed, you know, that when there was flash floods, the water would wash away soil and it put a groove in the land. It was about 10 feet high and maybe 30 feet wide.
Había un río seco donde cuando había inundaciones pues el agua corría por allí, pero era enorme, la leyera del río, ¿no?
And I would walk around the desert by myself, just looking at the desert. And I was walking through this wash, this dry riverbed.
Y andaba por el desierto, simplemente observando el desierto, y un día andaba por este río seco.
And I had this feeling that I've got to pull one of these branches. It's really a switch. And when I pull the switch right, the door will open up and my spaceship will be there and I can take off and go home.
Tenía el convencimiento de que una de esas ramas que había por ahí era una palanca de mi nave espacial y que si simplemente movía la rama especial que tocaba, se abriría mi nave espacial y podría salir de ahí.
And then about the age of 14, 15, when I started to read more and go to school, I heard about Albert Einstein, a very smart
Con
man.
14, 15 años, cuando ya iba a la escuela, empecé a leer más sobre Albert Einstein, ¿no? Una persona muy inteligente.
And that he only used 10% of his capacity for thinking,
Y que
his
decía
intellectual power.
que solo él usaba un 10% de su capacidad mental.
So I said to myself, if I'm only using maybe a small percent, how can I get to 100? Could you imagine if I could get to 100%? There's got to be a way for me to somehow use all of the ability that I have.
Si solo uso un 10%, imagínate lo que podría hacer con mi 100%. No tiene que haber una manera de que yo pueda usar mi 100%.
And I would think about putting electronic things together, stimulating the brain somehow to open up these dormant areas at the age of 14.
Y con 14 años pensaba que quizá poniendo unos electrodos en la cabeza y dándole algún botón podría activar este 100% de mi capacidad.
A few years pass.
Pasaron unos años
I'm now 18 years old
y ahora tengo 18 años,
and I'm a Marine
soy un marine
in Vietnam in a war.
en la guerra.
One night,
Una noche
I was in my tent with a candle.
en mi tienda con
No electricity when I first got there.
mi vela,
Canvas,
sin electricidad, simplemente en una tienda,
monsoon season.
en la época del monzón.
And those of us who've been in the Far East know what monsoon season is. Torrential rain. We're
Que hemos
talking
estado en el este, pues,
40
sabemos
day,
que
40
el
night.
monzón significa
Start getting the animals two by two.
tormenta
We're gonna get flooded.
torrencial, y íbamos cogiendo los animales de dos en dos porque venía una inundación.
And I was looking out of the tent, and I was looking at the explosions that were just happening just over the hill, not maybe 2-3 miles away, artillery. And I could hear gunfire outside the base.
Y miraba afuera por la tienda y veía pues literalmente las explosiones que había y escuchaba el fuego de las escopetas.
In those days, when you're a Marine, your job is fighting. That's what you do. It's live or die, and you always have a weapon with you, 24/7. If you take a shower, your weapon's with you. If you're going to the bathroom, your weapon's with you. If you go to sleep at night, your weapon's with you. This is the life that you live in those days.
En esa época, cuando eres un marine, tu trabajo es luchar. Y allí donde fueras siempre tenías que llevar tu metralleta, tu escopeta. Si te duchabas, tu metralleta, si dormías, tu metralleta, si comías, tu metralleta.
And I was looking out there, I said, something is desperately wrong. Is this what life is? This chaos?
Y pensaba que esto tiene que estar totalmente mal. ¿Cómo puede ser que esto sea la vida? ¿Esto es un
This
caos?
insanity?
¿Esta locura?
where all we do, get up in the morning and try to kill each other, and if we last the end of the day, we get up in the next morning, we try to kill each other again? Is this what life is about?
¿Y cómo puede ser que la vida sea esto? Levantarse por la mañana e intentar matar al otro, y si no estás muerto al final del día, has ganado, y al día siguiente lo mismo, intentar no morir y matar al otro.
So
¿Es esto la vida?
I asked my mother and my sister to send me some books on philosophy.
Y le pedí a mi hermana y
I
mi...
thought maybe somebody really smart knows the answer, and if I read enough, I can get what they figured out, because I'm just lost. And I read Immanuel Kant, I read Schopenhauer, I read Dialogues of Plato, I read several others, Western philosophers.
Le pedí a mi hermana y a mi madre que me trajeran libros de filosofía porque tenía que leer, sabía que esto no era la solución y que quizá alguno de estos filósofos tenía la solución, y leí pues a Kant, a Plató, a Schopenhauer.
And it runs in circles. They never answered any
Y
questions.
no respondía ninguna pregunta, siempre iban
They
dando
just
vueltas.
asked more questions from different directions, but never
Simplemente
went anywhere.
tenían más preguntas, pero no iban a ningún sitio.
So the purpose of this little diatribe, if you will, is to show for me personally that from a very young age, there was something yearning inside of me, something dissatisfied with life as I was perceiving it. And after I got out of the Marines and I went back to college, I kind of fell into computer science, and didn't have any money, so I had to work full time.
Eso para esta historia os lo explico porque ya para que veáis que desde pequeño tenía esta necesidad, esta sensación de que había algo que no me podía satisfacer la vida tal como estaba, y luego después entré
And go to
ciencia
school full time.
de ordenadores.
Dejó
Yeah, so
Dejó a los
maybe
Marines
maybe 2-3 hours sleep a night.
college, estudió y luego se metió
University.
en la universidad.
en los
Computer
ordenadores
science.
de aquella época, ordenadores del año 40 y poco. I'm saying the computers of those times, that, you know,
Yeah, they weren't really computers, they were cards.
yeah,
I mean, I actually did work on one of the very first computers, it's called an IBM 1620. If any of those of you who are,
yeah,
know,
I've
historical.
seen those computers with the,
Yeah.
with
My
the
mother
cards,
with those,
with
yeah.
the cards that you would do.
Where they
and
had
I
core
used them.
planes.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, we had, like,
Sure,
they were
it's-
ferrite donuts with, and I would see them, I actually pulled the drawer out and I could actually move the core planes around. And I would debug my programs in machine language by reading the lights on the console binary. And this is way back. But having said that, and I was exhausted, and I didn't have time to think spirituality stuff or whatever, because I was so exhausted all the time trying to earn a living and get good grades.
Estaba estudiando y también trabajando, intentando sobrevivir, y siempre estaba muy cansado, era como que no tenía espacio para pensar en la espiritualidad.
But one day I went to a friend of mine's house, and his mother was there. He and I grew up together. We went in the Marines together. We went to Vietnam together.
Estaba con un amigo de la universidad que habían ido a la guerra, eran marines juntos.
And his mother was a meditation teacher. She taught transcendental meditation.
Y su madre, y la madre de este chico era profesora de meditación, de la meditación trascendental, de Maharishi.
And I loved her dearly, but I always thought she was, you know, a little bit flaky, all this spiritual stuff, you know?
Y yo, bueno, la quería muchísimo, pero siempre pensaba que esto de la cosa espiritual era un poco rara.
Well, she saw me and she could tell I was a nervous wreck. I was exhausted. I was hypertense, and bless her heart, she said to me, I want you to come here, I want you to sit down, do what I tell you, shut up, and only when I'm finished, you can ask questions. This is how I learned to first meditate. And TM is an excellent practice for learning to meditate.
Y esta mujer pues me vio como estaba, ¿no? Hipertenso, súper nervioso y tal, y me dice, te vas a sentar aquí y hasta que no terminemos no te vas a levantar y vas a preguntar, vas a hacer las preguntas, pero vas a aprender a meditar. Y así es como él aprendió con la Transcendental Meditation.
As it came down, a couple of years later, I realized that which I had been looking for from the time I was a little boy kicking the ground looking for my spaceship, to that moment, I had finally found the string that led to it. And it wasn't outside anywhere. It was inside. It was the first time in my life that I experienced any small degree of peace, of quietness, where this black wall, that when I would close my eyes, there's this black wall, this teeny little spark of light was there.
En ese momento, cuando experimenté eso, vi que toda esa necesidad tan primitiva que tenía dentro, que no, a ver si cuando era pequeño que quería encontrar en la nave espacial para irse, pues que a través de esa experiencia con la meditación supo que eso era el hilo del que tirar para llegar a esta cosa, ¿no? Y que no era una nave espacial para salir volando, sino que era algo interior que él tenía que encontrar.
Well, I meditated and gave her some money of my paycheck every week for about 2 years. And I then quit my job as a systems analyst and software engineer. And I sold everything that I had, my car, everything but the clothes that I could fit into a backpack.
Y medité con ella durante 2 años, le daba una parte de mi nómina y lo vendí todo, todas las pertenencias que tenía, y finalmente me quedé con una bolsita de la ropa que podía guardar.
And I became a teacher of TM. And by the way, that's where I met my wife.
Y empezó, y así es como se hizo profesor de meditación trascendental, y allí es donde conoció a su mujer.
As we pull this string and see reality unraveling, after a couple of years of marriage, actually, we were only married maybe a year, and the friend that we had taught TM had listened to his tape by this guru from South Africa called Guru Rajananda.
Y bueno, habían pasado unos años de casados y habíamos enseñado meditación trascendental, y uno de los alumnos, si no he entendido mal, había escuchado una cinta de este gurú de Sudáfrica, el Guru Raj.
And he talked about personal meditation techniques designed for you based upon the essence of who and what you were.
Y este alumno hablaba de que este gurú enseñaba una meditación individualizada con unas técnicas específicas personalizadas para cada uno, basadas en la esencia.
And I loved the sound of his voice. He had a very rich British baritone voice. It's really, really lovely. And Vidya and I talked. I mean, I was up to my 5th technique in TM. There's a total of 7 you could do. And Vidya and I were up to our 5th. I mean, we were 9.5 years, we were really into it. But what was more important was,
I'm gonna forget, oh, sorry.
Is there something else that we can do that can open things up more?
We were like, estábamos como 9 años y medio con Vidya enseñando y aprendiendo esa meditación. Hay como 7 niveles en la meditación trascendental. Nosotros íbamos por el 5º, o sea que íbamos en serio. Más o menos por ahí.
So we learned the prep technique, did it for 3 months while our forms went to South Africa.
Ya es cuando les presentan a
Entonces conocen a Guru Raj y aprendieron las técnicas preparatorias con Guru Raj, se fueron a Sudáfrica.
And then we said, okay, let's get the full techniques. Well, there were no teachers.
Entonces dijimos, bueno, vamos a tener las técnicas completas. En ese momento no había profesores.
So my wife, myself, my mother, and my 2 babies, I flew us all back to Las Vegas, where this one teacher was.
Así que como no había profesores, cogimos pues, mi mujer, mis 2 babies y la madre, creo, y nos fuimos a Las Vegas, donde este único profesor estaba.
I'm not real sympathetic for people who have a hard time driving a mile or 2 to learn to meditate. I flew my family thousands of miles, all of us, round trip, just to learn to meditate.
Así que, bueno, pues para que veáis, ¿no? Yo que no me gusta hacer muchos kilómetros, pues me volé miles de kilómetros hasta Las Vegas para aprender.
We're meditating, and now Guru Raj, in 1977, I think it is, that his first trip over to the United States with Amrit and Gita, who were traveling with him, through Great Britain, I think.
Exactly where we started. Guru Raj started in South Africa.
Mhm.
From South Africa, UK and Spain in the 76. He
Yeah.
made the first course. And then 77, the United
77,
States.
he flew to America.
Empezaron en Sudáfrica enseñando, luego Ramón dice que en España estuvieron como el 76, también en el Reino Unido, y en el 77 Sujay lo conoció
Which is the first time he goes.
que es la primera vez que Guru Raj va a Estados Unidos, y es cuando él lo conoce en el 77.
Yeah.
¿En Las Vegas?
So
Or
when they flew in from I think it was London to Chicago, Guru Raj found out here there's a couple of his meditators not far from Chicago, which was my wife and I.
Volaron con Amrita y Gita desde Londres hasta Chicago, y Guru Raj se enteró, creo que Sujay y Vidya estaban por allí,
Yeah.
vivían cerca.
So he said, I want to go see them.
Así que dijo Guru Raj, quiero conocerlos.
So they rented a car. And by the way, we were going to the same course that he was going to in Santa Barbara. That was the very first one.
Guru Raj alquiló un coche porque, bueno, iban de hecho al mismo curso en Santa Bárbara.
So they drove down, and a lot of this stuff I didn't know because I'm working. I'm now a 77. I was the manager of information services for Armor Pharmaceutical Company. So it's Armor
En ese
Dial.
momento no me enteré mucho de
So
estas
I'm
cosas porque estaba muy
playing the
ocupado.
executive
Era
person.
un ejecutivo de un tema de informática.
So I just had gotten home. This is late in the afternoon, and I hadn't taken my suit off yet. But I get this knock on the door.
Así que bueno, llegué tarde, no me había sacado el traje todavía y alguien picó a la puerta de mi casa.
And I open the door, and there's this little brown guy in a suit and tie, and I was, holy shit!
Y había este hombre de color con el
So I will
traje
kind of
corbata.
end the story there. There's a lot more regarding to that trip and things that we did at the house, and then what happened on the first course in Santa Barbara. But the purpose of this whole narrative
Y hay muchas cosas que pasaron, que podemos hablar de lo que pasó en Santa Bárbara y cosas asociadas, pero básicamente os cuento esta narrativa
was to demonstrate how unknowingly the thread of life takes us to where our heart is anchored.
para demostrar que al final la vida te va llevando a allí donde el corazón está anclado.
Though I couldn't articulate it in words at any of those stages of life, that vibration, that longing to go home, that longing to be whole was there. And the universe happened to provide it to me. First, in situations that emphasized that this is crazy, I've got to do something different, to the point where Maharishi kind of showed up out of nowhere for me. And I started to meditate, and little by little, I began to gain greater understanding, and then all of a sudden, Guru Raj showed up. It's the sequence of unlikely events, unknown and unplanned by me, but yet continually broadcasted from the time that I was old enough to walk until today.
Es increíble ver cómo al final todo parecía como un plan urdido, ¿no? Que en ese momento, cuando yo estaba en cada uno de estos pasos, no me podía imaginar que esto me llevaría al punto que yo quería, que al final era pues encontrar esa unidad, esa fulfillment, ¿no? ¿Quién iba a decir que apareciera Maharishi Mahesh por ahí y que luego pues apareciera Guru Raj, me llevara hasta el día que estamos aquí hoy.
And the point is that in your own lives, think back across the timeline of your life.
Así que pensad en vuestras vidas, en línea de tiempo de vuestras vidas, mirad atrás.
How circumstances lined up in a certain way for you to be where you are at here today.
Cómo las circunstancias se han ido alineando para que vosotros al final terminéis donde estáis aquí ahora.
And I submit to you that if you really look within, you'll find that you have been doing the same thing that I was doing. You were broadcasting to the universe that I want to go home. I want to become whole. I want to experience that unbounded bliss of pure awareness once again, which is my true self, my true home. And every time we take an action, we think that we're doing it consciously. No, not really. Only this much. This much is being done for us by that force of creation, that divine force which propels us toward our true home. It's like the faster we go, the faster we go. The closer we get to the end, the faster we get going. It's interesting. In the beginning, it's one thing here, maybe one thing, and another thing, and we bounce a little, and then there comes a time. All bets are off, straight line, 100%, boom, no deviations. And I believe that is where all of us here are at. We have passed that point of no return.
Now,